I know it seems simplistic, but these complex issues can be simplified to a point as long as we understand where we're trying to go. We understand the job we have, which is to close the skills gap. And what's the simple math for us to get there? So how do we inspire kids all the way at the front as their students? And then how do we place them in jobs in the right places and spaces that those jobs are needed?
Hey guys, and welcome to the Skill Dad Podcast. My name's Zach Reeser. I'm your host. If this is your first time joining us, I want to say welcome. And if you keep coming back, part of the Skill Dad Society, I want to say welcome back. We've got another awesome gentleman on here joining me today that's got a really cool background. It makes me, as we get into it, he was telling me some of his story, and I was like, he's done some really cool things. And he's got some name brands that he's worked with, or I'm like, do you still know those people? But he didn't say that he did, or at least he hasn't offered yet, but maybe we'll get there. But today I've got Mr. Mark Hedstrom with me, and he is the Executive Vice President of Skilled Careers Coalition. He's also a dad, and he's going to be both telling us about what he's doing with Skilled Careers Coalition, which is right up the alley, Skilled Dad, Skilled Careers, but especially as it pertains to our kids and also us as dads. And then also some of his story of being a dad and some of the things he's learned along the way in his adventure. So, Mark, I want to say welcome to the Skill Dad Podcast, and thanks for joining me today.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Zach. And yeah, I look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, let's kick it off this way. How many kids do you have?
Just one, 11-year-old son, fifth grade. So, we're about to hit junior high next year. So it's going to be a big change.
It's coming up. Yeah. Mine's in fourth, but we're already looking at that shift that's coming. And are you ready for it? That's my question.
I think so. Yeah. There's a bit of trepidation on his part because he's in a smaller school out here in California, public school, but, obviously when you get to junior high, middle school, and then the high school, everyone starts consolidating and, there's just more kids and he doesn't know all those kids. So he's trying to figure out, the school that's down the street from us or the school across town from us, where he's going to land and what he wants to do. And yeah, just more around the friendships and who he's going to know and who he's not going to know, that nervousness more than anything else.
Oh yeah, totally. So you have some options as to some of the schools around you that you can look at then.
Yeah, because he's actually in a bilingual program here out in California. So he
nice.
Is in Spanish immersion, and they usually go to a certain middle school, but we live right next to another middle school, and we're kind of like, hey, you can literally roll out of bed, walk 50 yards down the street, and you're at school every morning. Doesn't that sound great? Just getting you ready for high school and college, right, when you're barely making class. So we got a couple options to look at. So yeah, he's trying to figure out like who's on the roster and which team does he want to play for, I guess.
Yeah, he's getting some scouting reports, trying to figure that one out. Is he teaching you Spanish too? Are you picking up on that?
I am. I'm the least educated of the three in the family when it comes to languages. He's been bilingual since he was able to talk. And then my wife speaks German and Spanish, so I'm barely passing for English some days, given the challenges, but I'm trying. I am trying. But he always comments how bad my accent is.
That's okay. Sometimes you need somebody to tell you so that you can get better, regardless of what you're working on.
Exactly right.
So I speak Spanish and started at a younger age, and I actually just had this conversation with somebody at work recently. Whenever someone comes up to you, and I'll use Spanish as a example, and you start speaking Spanish. And they kind of laugh at you, but then they tell you the right way to say something.
Right.
Those are like the best people because they're not just going to let you go out there and float. They might chuckle because it's funny, but, we'd probably do the same thing if it was turned around. But they're looking to actually teach you. So I applaud him. And, next time we can have this conversation in Spanish because I believe in you.
We'll try.
Okay, so we got the roster that we're going through, scouting reports, trying to get into the middle school. With your time as being a dad, do you guys do sports as well? Like actual sports, not just...
Yep.
Okay.
He's swimming and soccer currently.
Okay.
I mean, he's at that point, as I'm sure a lot of dads can attest, 10 to 12, your sons and daughters are kind of going, oh, do I want to do this? Am I going to commit to this? You're still allowing them to experiment and, figure out what it is they might want to commit to. So he's kind of in that place right now where he's starting to really get into like, oh, I want to keep going to practices. I want to show up for practices, which is a good thing to see. Yeah, the nice thing about living in California is that you do get more of a year round. I grew up back east in New England. So, your swimming and your soccer seasons were very much truncated. Whereas here it's, all year long in both cases, which is, I think, a nice thing to have because you don't kind of lose that rhythm and that practice muscle that you can often lose when you kind of have to stop for a couple months every year when it's freezing outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Get a little slow in the off season.
A little slow, going, out and play some golf games. But no, it's so he's really committing to it. I think that's he's kind of in that transition point of like, yeah, soccer's kind of fun. Actually, no, I really enjoy it, and I'm going to commit to it.
Yeah, no, that's good. When did he? I'm just curious because after we're done, I'm going to wrap up, and then I'm going to my first indoor soccer practice, and I'm the coach. And we've done seasons of soccer, but never indoor. And I had a coaches meeting the other night, and the way they made it sound. And for anybody listening that plays indoor, you're all going to be, I don't know what you're going to say, but it looks like the Thunderdome. So I know we're going to enter. It's just going to see who leaves this thing because it sounds rowdy and I really want to play, but I don't think they'll let me. So when did you start?
I played indoor soccer growing up. It was definitely just starting the time, and it was mostly in hockey rinks. So they would, it was like street hockey was big in New England. I don't know if it's big other places, but it was back when I was growing up. And so it was either in a street hockey rink or just a regular ice rink. They would kind of throw stuff over, and you still had the boards and everything else. It's like, man, it's a bit of the Terradome, right? Where you're kind of going, or Thunderdome, whatever you want to call it. We're just like, it's 22 people enter, only one leaves. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I had one of the guys. I hadn't met him yet, but we've been texting because he's going to help me coach. And he goes, I said something to him. I was like, look, because he's never had indoor soccer there. And I said, it looks like the Thunderdome. So buckle up. Our goal is to teach half of our team how to play soccer in 45 minutes because that's all we got today. And he came back and said, full transparency, I'm a baseball guy. So, still figuring that out. I said, I am too, normally baseball, but let's go. And if they can kick in the right direction and learn the basic rules, like we'll figure it out as we go.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah. Like being a dad,
Yeah. I mean, basically, you got to learn as you go. I mean, there is, I think there's plenty of videos and self-helps and books out there. When our son was born, there wasn't really a good manual for dads, around how to do this kind of stuff. So you just got to learn as you go. And I think it's the same thing, as they get older and they start engaging in sport. It's just like if they flip that switch and they want to get involved, then it's off to the races. Like for you for coaching, because I think I don't think I could coach my son. I think that would probably be a bad experience for both of us. But I do ref in AOISO, and I'm telling you, it's not the kids, it is the parents. They are something else these days. So, if you're a parent out there on the sideline and see a guy like me in a yellow shirt that's feeling awkward, just be nice next time.
So I'll give you double commendation because being a ref. So I have a couple rules. I coach baseball and soccer, and my small email that goes out to parents, I said, look, I've got to say it just because we've seen it. And that's YouTube is really good for cat videos. It's not good for watching parents on the sidelines for doing stupid stuff at their little league, like 8-year-old game, whatever it is. So I got to say it. Let's have a great season, but not end up on YouTube for that reason. So I know that's hard. So I'm going to say thank you for stepping up to do the ref position because that's hard to fill sometimes, and we need it in order to play.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I always try to remind the parents, and I've had some choice words thrown at me over the last couple of years, and I'm just like, I'm a dad too, right? That's us out here, like, just because I'm not getting paid to do this job, by the way, and just to get insults hurled at me for maybe calling offsides the wrong way, but it's definitely helped me
Right.
appreciate being a parent, watching the other refs and just looking at them and going, I understand where you're at, buddy. Like, we'll be fine. I'm not going to say a word. So,
Do you guys, do you guys have like a secret like hand movement? You're just like, yeah, I'm one of you.
yeah, we could
Like an
probably
underground, like ref to ref
throw,
thing. You should start one.
throw a handshake in there somewhere.
Yeah. For those listening, if you're not going to go rough, you should go coach. I'm just going to throw that one out as my own personal PSA because we need both, and it's hard to step into both. And I love on my teams where I just throw it out to all the dads. I'm like, I need some people to jump in the ring with me and wrangle these guys and turn them into little athletes. And I love it. That makes some of the best, friends. I made some really good friends out of that, and it's a shared experience. And so I highly encourage you to do it. And kids, and if you're thinking the same thing, like Mark had the same thoughts. Like, do I want my son to be the coach's kid? I'll be honest, like he gets it harder than anybody. I mean, it's like double expectation. So, but he appreciates. We always talk through stuff. And it's good. He knows coach hat versus dad hat. So speaking of coaching and kind of equipping kids to build the skills they needed to build in order to be successful in whatever they're going towards, in this case, soccer. You're now involved with an organization that's working on that in kind of a different capacity and a different focus. I'd love to learn more about Skilled Careers Coalition, how it came to be, how you're involved, and what y'all do.
Yeah, the Skilled Careers Coalition was stood up about 2 years ago in 2022. We're a philanthropic-backed organization, so we work with individuals who are looking at impact investing in terms of the philanthropic giving. In this case, one of our clients came to us and said, I've got, some concerns about where we are going as a nation from an economic standpoint. He's an economist by training and background, and just looking at things like, long-term trends around GDP, other things like national security. And one of the things that he has really come into focus on is we've really done a disservice over a number of generations of moving more students to just consider a 4-year degree as the option for them, or to consider the military. And we haven't really done a very good job of considering skilled careers as an option for a lot of students. So we've steered individuals down this path. And our concern was everyone's talking about the skilled trades gap, right? For every 5 plumbers that are moving to or in retirement, there's only 1 plumber coming through the system to backfill those roles. So you've got a huge unmet need and demand out there from employers, from entrepreneurial businesses, from family, businesses that have been third generation trying to find that next place. And often, is just a recent article in the Wall Street Journal talking about how PE is coming into the space in HVAC and plumbing and other places because these multi-generational family businesses don't have someone to take over. So when you look at that demand side versus supply side, one of the things we're trying to do is destigmatize the conversation around skilled careers with young students, with parents, with counselors, those that are supporting that student through their journey in education, but also what do they want to do with their lives? What kind of career do they want to have? And really pushing back in that dark, dangerous, and dirty mentality around blue collar jobs. And, these aren't the, same jobs that your grandfather had working in a factory for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's and just showing them that there's a third way or third option in considering a skilled career. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our mission. So we are, really being led by the idea that how do we bring the youth of today to the skilled careers of tomorrow? Mm. The way in which we're doing that is threefold. One is inspiring the next generation. So we have a youth marketing engine and platform called Skills Jam. It's content by youth for other youth. So really leveraging students who are in CT programming now, whatever field that might be, whatever career that is, having them talk about why they're passionate about what they're doing, what they're excited about, anywhere down into, the social media holes of ASMR and like showing how cool it is to, weld and, build a tiny home or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. Having that peer-to-peer interaction, one, is very authentic, and two, it's more convincing than someone like myself at my age trying to talk to a young student about considering a career in plumbing or masonry, right?
Sure.
So a lot of work in Skills Jam is around inspiring that next generation the next piece in our focus is really around connecting in that ecosystem. So you talk to unions, you talk to business owners, you talk to associations, you talk to people in workforce development, all the way through the system. There's this ecosystem that sits in the middle between recruiting and placing skilled talent. And the problem is that everyone's going at this issue on their own in some cases working collectively and doing what they can. There's a lot of good people in the space trying to figure this out. The reality is it's still very disaggregated. So we need to spend more time in that space, because if we're creating more supply of skilled talent, we have to work on the friction that exists in that ecosystem to place those skilled workers in the right jobs, right? So a lot of our work is around inspiring that next generation, building up that supply opportunity, showing that a skilled career is of equal weight and of equal value and fulfillment and what you could be passionate about and economic success, to then how do we work in the ecosystem with all the different players to just create better capacity and efficiency in placing skilled talent in the right jobs in the right places.
Well, everything that you just said is near and dear to my heart. You and I talked about it briefly, but 2 years ago, I did that thing that I said I'd never do and took over my family's business that my grandfather started 30 years ago. And it's an upholstery business. And I got to tell you, after about 16 years in the corporate world, and I learned a ton, a lot of great people, a lot of great memories. This is probably some of the most fun that I've had. And it's that balance of, like upholstery business, as I said, that's a balance of taking in. So like, I'm kind of speaking to anybody that's ever had that itch of, you've been doing your thing. You've thought about going out into the bigger world, maybe going after something on your own. I know a lot of you have either done that or thought of it. But also if there's any of that thought that, like what I had, honestly, I was like, I'm going to go from, this level, this title, this, lifestyle, yada, yada, to, this upholstery business. And it was kind of me sticking my nose up at it, which, shame on me at the end of the day. But then you get in, you're like, holy smokes. Like, okay, I can take these systems and everything that I've learned and apply it to this business. And it's something you said earlier that made me think of this. It's like what it was maybe 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even, to what it can be now with the combination of technology, automation, efficiency. We still have all the social media stuff, like all that. You bundle it up, and it's like, I get to interact with customers day-to-day basis. I lead a team, and we get to like solve hands-on creative things. It's a blast. So, but my challenge is finding people that can do it.
Yeah.
In 5 years, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be really good at upholstery myself, which is probably the first one.
Yeah. And I think what you're pointing to is that sense of fulfillment, right? And that transition for you into really feeling like you're more engaged in what you're doing because it's, a bit more personal, and you had to make a very, probably a difficult decision at the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Moving away from the corporate sector. I've had to do the same thing, moving from, management consulting into philanthropy. Like, you have to make choices, but I knew that at the end of the day, I would be happier in the space that I'm in now than when I was, out management, consulting on hospital and healthcare systems. But I think, I think your point there is well taken. Is, there's something about working with your hands. Just to talk about a career transition, I don't work with my hands. I used to. I think we talked about this. I grew up working on a farm, so I do know how to fix tractors, or at least I could probably get myself into a situation where I might know what I'm doing. Although I'm pretty sure technology's changed since I was last around a tractor. But to your point, I was coming out of the corporate world, trying to understand what it is I really wanted to do and what made me happy. And then I think we talked about this. I jumped ship and moved into running a business because I'd never run a business. And that was incredibly fulfilling and educational for me. I think the same for you, coming out of the corporate sector and saying, hey, here's my chance. Here's a leap that I'm going to have to take. But I know on the other side of it, I'm going to be much happier with what I'm doing, more engaged with what I'm doing. So yeah, I totally hear and see where you're at.
Yeah. It's also like there is a difference too, even though it's a smaller team. You can run a business unit that has 100 plus people in it, and then when you get into you know the you're doing everything, like when you're owning it and leading it, and you run into some of those things that you knew about, but you had teams for it, and now you're like, okay, I don't have like my team to just call on, so you get to learn everything that you knew about at a high level, but now you get up close and personal with it. And one other thing, it's probably more of like one of those myths that I want to throw out there too, um, because in the conversation I had around topics like this, sometimes there's this idea, and it's going to be true in some cases. Each scenario could be different, but that there's this idea that you're going to go from whatever role that you're in into like a lower paying job. And so when we're looking at kids, and it's like the value of what you're saying and the value of these skills, fast forward when we have no plumbers, I bet those plumbers are going to be doing just fine. They're doing pretty well now.
Right.
Like the business that we're in, it's a very lucrative business. So it's this interesting crossroads that we kind of find ourselves where there's a huge opportunity for those that are younger to learn. And there's also an opportunity for those that are needing that supply of people that want to do it and know how to do it. And then everyone kind of wins. And then at some point, maybe the pendulum swings the other way. But I think it's really, really great what you all are doing for the kids. So like, what's the main kind of how are you integrating this into the market, so to speak, so that people know about you?
I mean, if we think about and you look at where people are spending their time, right? It's on their device, it's on their phone, it's iPad or smaller. And where younger students are spending their time is on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We've been talking about our kids. My son consumes Mark Rober videos, 5 times and then repeat and watches them again. That's where he's consuming content. So a lot of what we're trying to do with Skills Jam is engage youth where they're spending their time and influencing their decision making and doing it in a positive tone and way, which I think social media absolutely has its downside. I spent a number of years on the other side of this issue looking at social media as how it affected men and boys' mental health in America. And it can have a positive influence, and that's what we're trying to lean into. So our tone of voice and Skills Jam is really positive, looking forward. Here's what you can think about. Here's what you want to do. But doing it in the places, spaces they're already spending their time. It's the same concept we had when I was working in men and boys' mental health is you have to go to where the men and boys are, right? They're not going to come to you. You kind of have to show up in the places and spaces they're spending their time and then create authentic, engaging content that kind of moves them down a path to make a decision. Like, oh, do I want to watch the next video? I'm interested in carpentry. What does that look like? How do I even start exploring that opportunity and moving them down that consideration pathway, which is incredibly important to even just expose them to. And then, as I said, surrounding that parent and the counselor conversation around that saying, oh, if you're interested in this, let's look at ways that you can explore this further. What kind of programming is out there? The other thing I'd say is, when you look at social media for your business, I'm sure you're having to lean in because that's probably where some of your customer base is moving. And, quite frankly, when you look at how most employers, and we had this conversation with a number of associations that represent industries and sectors and individual employers themselves, they're not, these younger students that are your next generation of talent are not spending their time on LinkedIn or on websites.
Right.
That's just not where they live. It's not how they're going to live, right? That's all of their marketing, all the ways to influence their thinking is going to be spent in social media. It's not going to be in a website. So if you actually look at the Skill Careers Coalition, we have a website and we've invested in that and explaining what it is we're trying to do and how do we build this coalition together. But if you look at our Skills Jam website, it's a vanity site because all of our content is on social media. It's not on a website because we know kids aren't going to go there. And that's just the basic reality of your next talented worker and the students you're trying to engage aren't living in the same places and spaces that we were living in 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 15 years ago. It's shifted so rapidly and we kind of have to keep up and see what's coming next in order to engage them in the right places that they're consuming that content.
Yeah. Doesn't YouTube now become like equal to the search engine of Google for a lot of things? I mean, it is blown up.
50% of all, 50 or 55% of all, I believe, all content traffic is through YouTube.
Yeah. Unbelievable. But it makes sense. I mean, especially in something like this, people are, shoot, I think about the guys, that heckle me for not doing tool videos yet. And what's the first thing we do? We don't know how to do something. I mean, I'm guilty. Like, let me go YouTube it. And, 9 times out of 10, you're going to at least figure it out through some repetition. Unless it's something like upholstery, then I see a lot of people come in with their nailed it projects. They're like, can you help me with this? Like, yeah, we can help you with that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's just good business for you, right?
Hey, it works. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I think there's something to that, which is simply just acknowledging where people are moving and spending their time for your customer base, for your next skilled talent that you want to bring into your company. That's where they're engaging. And so you kind of need to be in that space and be seeing that space. And as long as you're creating authentic content and it's engaging content, then you're going to end up in a better place. Whether you're trying to hire talent or you're trying to find that next customer.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. What's the target age range that you guys are starting at?
We look at, given social media, in some platforms, you can only speak to, people that are 13 or over.
Right.
So our primary audience for Skills Jam is 13 to 24. In particular, looking at 13 to 18, right? Because that's really middle school is when we start looking to have a conversation around inspiring them and getting them a bit more engaged to explore an opportunity. So when they get to high school or post-secondary, they're already primed to consider CTE programming as their option. And then they're having a conversation with their parents and counselors throughout. So 13 to 18 is really our sweet spot. 13 to 24 is the whole audience that we're looking at. In the U.S. right now, that represents about 70 million individuals, right?
Wow.
When we look at the number, and that also includes, veterans and active military that are coming out of the military, becoming a veteran. That also includes people who are rejobbing, right? Maybe your listeners know this, but if you look at college dropout rates, I was surprised when I first saw this and started looking into it. College dropout rates are about 40% in the U.S. on average. So think about that. You're coming out of college. You've now assumed some debt. You're probably in a service sector job, thinking about what do I want to do next. So there's a ripe opportunity for that 18 to 24-year-old to talk about rejobbing into a skilled career, right? And they're going to be in the workforce quicker.
Yeah.
All the way through to people who are coming out of the prison systems, right? They're looking for placement. How do we help them? So that total population is about 70 million. Just to do the simple math, currently only about 10 to 11 million of that population are in CTE programming in the U.S. That's about 16% of that 70 million.
Wow.
And so if you arguably on the other end of the spectrum, we're talking about, skilled trades gap or the supply and demand challenge we've got, the range of unfilled skilled careers jobs in the U.S. right now is anywhere from 3 to 5 million, depending on who you ask and which piece of research you're looking at. But that's the average range. If you take that 10 to 11 million, that's 16% of that 70 million population, and you move it to 25%, so just a 9% bump, that's an additional 6 to 7 million skilled workers in America. That fills the gap.
Wow.
And so I know it seems simplistic, but these complex issues can be simplified to a point as long as we understand where we're trying to go. We understand the job we have, which is to close the skills gap. And what's the simple math for us to get there? So how do we inspire kids all the way at the front as their students? And then how do we place them in jobs in the right places and spaces that those jobs are needed?
Okay, here's a question. We're going after. Always, whenever I say going after, we're targeting the 13 to 24 age range. Let's play the scenario that a 14-year-old has been getting into Skills Jam. They're loving it. They're kind of coming up with the idea of now, you know what? I don't know that I want to go to college because I never really wanted to, but I really found this thing that I want to go and pursue. So we're really introducing to the kids, what are you doing on the parent side of it? Because this is like a big paradigm shift from the generation that more people had gone to college and a lot more people have debt. But what are you doing kind of on that side of it? Because that's who you're talking to right now.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly right. And I think, look, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm not sure where I fall in that range, but I'm somewhere towards the early part of Gen X. I think so our primary audience is that 13 to 24-year-old, right? That's who we want to be really engaging. But we know there's two critical decision makers in that student's life. It's the parents and it's the counselor. Right now, if you talk to counselors, counselors are not incentivized around skilled careers and placing kids in CTE programming. They're incentivized around college placement, but they're not incentivized around CTE placement. So we need to change that conversation. But with respect to parents, when we started this work, as I mentioned back in 2022, we didn't want to go into it blind. We wanted to have evidence-based research behind the decisions we were going to make about how do we stand up this coalition. What do we want to focus on? What are our core competencies that we can leverage with others? And one of the things we found in a survey piece of work we did with parents, students, and counselors was the counselor has a disincentive currently, as I mentioned, and they also have a lack of resources and tools around how to guide that student along the CTE pathway. It's very disaggregated even at a local level. Some places are doing really well. So we've been talking to some people who are, have factories in certain parts of the country that are doing a much better job of doing outreach, but it's very grassroots. With respect to parents, a lot of what we saw in the research was they're open to the idea. So looking at things like sentiment. Does the fact that my student or my child want to pursue a skilled career create a problem for me? And the sentiment really was around 45% of parents are saying, I'm open to the idea. So I think we are starting to see a shift. But again, the problem then becomes, well, then where do I go to understand what's out there? I'm having a conversation with a counselor who doesn't know where to go potentially. And so part of that recruitment placement pipeline, that ecosystem that I was mentioning up top around connecting, we've got to do a better job that once they're in the front door, looking at the front window called Skills Jam, excited about a skilled career, once they're inside the shop, how are you engaging them and furthering them down the path of, ultimately purchasing that or considering that career for themselves? And so there's a lot of work. So our front door is really to say, I choose skills. I choose skills in construction. I choose skills in manufacturing. I choose skills in industrial. And then plugging in other people that are part of the coalition that are already doing this work so that exploration and that decision can actually further itself along. And part of the opportunity in there is engaging the parents and the counselors in that. And as I said, a lot of what we heard was they're open to it. In some cases, they're disincentivized or not incentivized to do it. But if they had the right resources and tools and journey, then you would have more people going further down that path and exploring that as an option for their kids.
I guess really broken this one down. This is the nerd in me that's kind of taking the business side and then being also in kind of the skilled trade side, and just enjoying the conversation around the ins and outs of like how things move, right? I mean, this is a big movement piece. And you mentioned colleges before too. I don't know the stats, maybe you do, but the trajectory right now is that there's less men going to college. And so if we fast forward a few years down the road and like play these numbers out, like it's just kind of a really interesting quandary. And based on what I know with my audience, a lot of us have kids that won't necessarily be in the workforce for, it varies, but just say 8 to 10 years, for many. However, some of you might be like, well, what, this isn't necessarily directly dad related. Why we're talking about it, I doubt anybody is because they're still listening, but it is because one of the things as a skilled dad, as a dad for us, is to understand the options that are out there that we can go and learn more about so that we can help point our kids in a direction that's going to lead to their success and opening the opportunity for them to find the things that they enjoy, and help support in that and do the due diligence that we can understand now that maybe they don't. And by the way, learning how to do these skills, like if there's so many skills that we talk about, it's such a big bucket, but whether it's the plumbing, basic plumbing, all those, those are some things that we'll focus on here just as dads, because some of us didn't learn how to do it and want to know how to do it. Those are just good life skills to learn in the first place. Um, but yeah, as we sit here and work through, I mean, I think, speaking of the generation side, I don't know what I am. I mean, there's like two different millennial scales, but I'm like a zillennial, zennial. Is that zennial? I'm like the old geriatric millennial is what I am.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I've had a lot of friends, and you talked about LinkedIn. I see a lot of people moving around on LinkedIn too, into either doing their own thing, or switching to different careers that are more hands on. Like, a lot of people have actually moved to this other thing, and we had the whole great exit that happened a couple of years ago, and who knows how it goes. So I think, with generalized statement, I think with the millennial generation, who we have a lot of kids, there is more of an open mind around what is the full opportunity spectrum that's out there that we can go tap into. So that's why I was really excited to learn more about this.
Yeah. And a couple things to pick up on what you're saying. I mean, I think we talked about it early on, right? It's your journey to getting to something that was more fulfilling and engaging for you, and the same for me, right? I think we've had to learn that, whereas I think the opportunity here with dads and parents, having had that experience and that knowledge now, really just opening up the aperture and saying it could be in the military, it could be a 4-year degree, or it could be a skilled career, and just creating an equal weighting of all three options, and opening up that aperture and creating more optionality for your student, your child. I mean, to go to a personal conversation, then I want to come back to the gender split and the comment there. Look, when I started down this path, a couple of years ago, looking at skilled careers and going, okay, there's something here. That's something we can apply in terms of how do we solve this collectively. I wasn't thinking, my son was going to do anything but go to a 4-year degree school. Right. And now I'm just, and I'm having this conversation with my partner and just going, hey, he might decide that that's where he wants to go. And we should build it in such a way that he has all options available to him, and just open up that aperture. So if he tells us, I want to go do this thing, then we have the ability to help him to go do that thing. And if it's a 4-year degree, great. If it's a skilled career, a CTE program, awesome. Of equal weight, equal opportunity. And the same with the military. To get back to your point around, I think at the same time we've created this challenge within the skilled careers, we've stigmatized the roles, the blue collar jobs, they're dark, dirty, dangerous. We've also steered parents and generations of students towards a 4-year degree, where you now have lots of student debt. Staying out of the politics of, whether or not we're forgiving student debt or not. The reality is we created a massive problem for a lot of people to go get a 4-year degree at a rate that 40% of them are dropping out and then having to pay off that debt some other way. So you have this push away from blue collar jobs, and you have this push towards a 4-year degree is the only degree you need to have. If you actually go really into the data, and it's actually the Fed Reserve out of St. Louis has done a longitudinal study since the 1950s of what's the return on investment on a high school diploma, a BA, or an advanced degree. It's now gotten to a point, unless you're in STEM and you're at a top university, the ROI is negative, even for getting a master's or a PhD. And so you think about that. So you're coming out of school already behind the 8 ball in terms of the debt you've assumed to get to that career point. Whereas you look at skilled careers, right, and you look at those opportunities, it's a shorter road to getting out to the workforce. It's less debt. In a lot of cases, people are trying to pay people to get into apprenticeship programs that offset that debt. And, you come out the other side where you have a demand issue going on in this country that won't subside in the next 5 to 10 years, where you can make your own way as an entrepreneur, or, or the family business, or joining a large organization that needs someone who understands mechatronics, right? So there's a real challenge in there. And I think with respect to gender, the last thing I'll say, because I know you mentioned this up front, so you do have a decreased rate of men going to 4-year degrees. We need to be doing a better job of making sure those men stay in the workforce and directing them to the places that they can do that, right? If we're seeing a decrease in men going to a 4-year degree school, okay, well, where are these men going, and what could we be doing to entice them and encourage them to look at a skilled career as an option? Because we've got a challenge, right? We have a skilled trades gap that we have to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking at that, and you know, the skilled trades gap. The other thing I'll say is we also need to bring more women into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly, we talked about this. I came out of management consulting and healthcare. I did a lot of work in nursing and recruitment and retention. There was a real challenge back in the early 2000s with nursing, seeing what was coming with boomers starting to retire and getting older. They didn't have enough nurses to fill positions.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one thing that they had to do was actually go, well, why are we positioning ourselves as a female only, a women only career opportunity? Why are we not targeting and engaging men in this conversation as showing them that there's an opportunity here?
Yeah.
Have they filled the gap completely? No, but have they done a better job because they've looked at how do we bring more men into this workforce? And I think the same for the conversation we're having in construction. How do we bring more women into the construction workforce? Because that's bringing both in is going to solve the problem a lot quicker than just sort of, continuing with sort of traditional mindset around this career is defined as this type of individual or this gender.
Right. Yeah, it's a fair point. And also we're speaking at like 30,000 feet on kind of industries, but then the roles that are within all these industries, I mean, there's a huge gambit. So it's more of, I think, the introduction to what you all do is, I think it goes on the point that as dads and parents, hello moms that are listening, I know there's some of you out there. If part of our role is to help prepare, protect, and provide our kids for being successful adults, then understanding all the options that are available in a world that changes rapidly. I mean, school is completely different than when I was in school 20 years ago, whatever. And there's so many online things now. I know some people go to college and take like an online class, like that's their college course. Like actually being at the university. And things have just changed, and they're going to continue to change. But it's more of how can we understand, be exposed to, and understand what options are out there, do our own research, help facilitate the conversation. And also, our kids are going to have different things that it lights them up. And so if we can see those things and then help tap into it, being a Renaissance kid, a Renaissance dad, I mean, it's kind of like being a skilled dad. Like we got lots of different skills in different areas. We find the things that we can pour gas on, and then let them go and dominate the future. But we're the ones that are guardians of the future right now. So no pressure, boys and girls. Let's go do it. But
yeah, I do think, I mean, from the professional to the personal, like I said, that transition for me to going, I haven't really thought about this because I've been kind of on this one track mind of it's a 4-year degree. That's what he's going to do. And my wife was the same. But just opening up, because I think to your point, right, I'm here to provide the best opportunities for my son, as you are with your kids and as your listeners are with their kids, right? We want to provide the best opportunities and the most exposure and larger aperture we can provide them to see what's out there in the world and what really kind of lights them up, to your point. I think that's what we're trying to do as parents, as well as, what we're trying to do in skilled careers and what you're trying to do, with the podcast is just open up that aperture and sort of get the conversation out there to say, our job is to set up as much success as possible for our kids. What does that potentially look like and how big is that aperture?
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. And the cool thing about opening the aperture is in the discovery phase. I can only speak to my experience here. In the discovery phase, doing this podcast and talking to gentlemen like you and just opening it up and looking at, say, hey, like their future is now and it's coming. So what is out there? I've picked up on a whole lot of cool things I didn't know existed that honestly benefit me. And I'm like, this is fantastic. My wife and I have learned a bunch of stuff. Like that's the fun part. So I really appreciate what you and your team are doing to get that out there and to help just bring awareness, open the aperture, as well as provide some of the fun and healthy content to kids to positively learn things. So I appreciate what you're doing and what your team's doing on that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're excited. I mean, it's it's as I said, transitioning out of the for-profit space into the nonprofit space, it's the thing that keeps me going, right? It's that fulfillment, it's that passion, that in some ways our small contribution to this larger challenge will provide for other people. And I think that's what kind of keeps me going and fulfills me every single day.
Yeah. We have a common bond with that, sir. You're on the podcast. So I hope everybody that's been a part of it up to this point has enjoyed the conversation. Where can people learn more? Where can I send them to?
So in terms of understanding how we're talking to students or talking to your kids and they're exploring this, it's over on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. It's called Skills Jam. Go check it out. Understand like the conversations happening, how these younger students are excited about and talking about their careers and what they're looking to do in the future. All the way through to, if you go to skillcareers.org, which is the website, again, more for the parents and
for the old people like us. Use websites. Okay.
Yeah, go. We've got a website. We're also on LinkedIn. All the places that older guys like I go to. So skillcareers.org, and then on those three social media platforms, just look for Skills Jam. We've got longer form content on YouTube, 8 to 10 minute episodes. We're a week or two, a little under 2 weeks out from launching a series with Ty Pennington called Champions League. So a lot of that is really around engaging them. As I said, my son is consuming a lot of Mark Rober. I'm hoping that the algorithm picks up that, we're out there doing the same conversation and he just gets fed some of the content that we've been creating. So I want to see how that algorithm works on our behalf. But yeah, that's a place to just start exploring, how we're talking to your kids or students, and then how we're looking to engage parents and counselors and others that can help those students on their journey.
Yeah. It sounds like some interesting challenges ahead with the system that has been built, but it's a good thing. And I think the time is probably prime because, as you said, I mean, the demand and supply are not equal right now. And so there's big opportunities for people. And there's also, for us on the consumer side, if you need a plumber and you have to wait for like 3 weeks and you wonder why, well, there you go. It's the economics of the jobs and supply and demand. Discuss it fast, but Mark, I feel like we could continue. We didn't get to talk about some of your cool, previous life things that you had done. So that's just got to be a cliffhanger for everybody later. But I appreciate you being on and would love to get together again sometime you're open to it.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, happy to talk about mustaches, styling, and all that kind of fun stuff for, what it's like to try to produce snowboards in Austria. Just a bit of a circuitous journey, but like I said, running, being involved in running business, something I never did. So I just kind of jumped at the chance, and then finding that fulfillment in nonprofit. There is a through line in my career, but anytime you need mustache chips. So for those that are listening, I used to be the executive director for the Movember Foundation in the U.S. I want to say thank you to all the partners that have looked the other way for those awful mustaches over the years, but they are doing some amazing work out there in terms of raising a lot of awareness and money for men's health issues. So that kind of stuff, honestly, seeing that brand and seeing Skills Jam as a brand, like that's what really connected me. And it's like, oh, this is different. Leveraging a brand and building equity in a brand for social good, there's nothing more fulfilling for me. And doing it now the second time has been really amazing to see.
I'm glad you found it. A lot of people are looking for it, so I'm glad you found it. Maybe just even a 10-minute tutorial on the proper mustache grooming techniques, because November it's upon us. So
yeah, it is. It's 2 days away. I'm clean shaven for a reason, and it's going to be really awkward for about 28 days. Even though I'm of Swedish and Irish heritage, my mustache takes a while to come in. So
all right, so I'm going to schedule it for day 27. It's going to be perfect.
Yeah, that'll be just on the other side of awkward.
Yes. Well, I can shave this and try to go like Top Gun 80s goose look. I'll wear aviators, but Mark, I appreciate it, sir. Absolute pleasure. A lot of great information, and I hope that there's a lot of people that can check you out and find some benefit.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation. Happy to help in any way I can.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be in touch. Day 27. Prepare
Day
yourself.
27. There we go.
Thanks,
All
Mark.
right. Thanks, Zach.
Well, guys, if you stayed on this long, I know you've got some big takeaways from this. For me, they always seem like they just go so fast. And what's interesting to see is when I get to go back and see some, the information I get to see and how many of you listen all the way through. And it's an hour of investment. So I want to say thank you. And I want to say I'm proud of you because you're investing in some knowledge that hopefully something that you can then take action on. Knowledge is fine. Action is actually what's going to help you build those skills. And hopefully in this case, while it's a bit of a different conversation, it's around something that we can really go and learn more about so that then we can apply it to not only ourselves, but also our kids as they prepare, as you prepare for them to get in a new place and become an adult and go do what they're going to do in their lives. Hey, we can open that aperture, as Mark said. I think it's very well said. And we need to understand what those things are too, so that we can challenge our own paradigms and mental models around things, because there's a ton of opportunities out there. And I know all of you that are listening, you're the ones to help go lead that. And like I said earlier, it's on us. It's on us, moms and dads, to know some of these things, and be the good stewards of what we've been given. And that's the little ones that you got at the house. So I am excited to not only get this one out, but hear what you learned and see what you think about going and checking out the Skilled Career Coalition. I'll put everything in the notes. That way you can actually read it. If you're driving, don't worry about it. Go look at the notes. But at the end of the day, I hope that you can take something from this story and what we talked about and apply it to your life on your journey to becoming the skilled dad.